Hey, what's up? This is X-Pac, and you're listening to In Your Head Radio. If you smell what the Pac is smoking.
All right, and welcome to In Your Head Wrestling Radio. I am the internet icon, handsome Jackie Jones, along with my right-hand man and the enforcer of the Headyverse.
The 1-inch biceps, the power goat. Oh, I'm full of so much power tonight, Jack. Bah! How about that?
That's excellent. And joining us right now, and you might be wondering why right about now, we have Pete Gass, formerly of the Mean Street Posse. Or maybe once you're Mean Street Posse, you're Mean Street Posse for life. I don't know how that works. We'll find out. How you doing?
Oh, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on?
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm listening to the Mean Street Posse right now. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, if you're calling in tonight to talk to Pete Gass, and there's been a lot of people trying to get through, just wait till we call on you, and you'll be able to ask him a question. So just wait a minute there.
Oh my God, how many questions? Do I get one question?
We'll figure it out. But you've actually talked more than Pete has so far.
Pardon?
That was not Pete Gass.
No, that's totally fine. So how you doing tonight, Pete?
Well. How you doing? Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for coming on. It's been years in the making, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I think ever since we started the show, he has always wanted Pete Gass, and tonight we have him.
You got me. How's everything going?
Well, I've got a cold, but I'm doing all right.
All right.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Oh, I'm doing great.
Yeah. Now, we do have a lot of people on the line here, so this guy's been calling in for the last 15 minutes or so, 978 area code. Who are you, where are you from, and what's your question for Pete?
Oh, how you guys doing? Thanks for taking my call. Really appreciate it. My name's Sean Giannetti from Lowell, Massachusetts.
Excellent. So, what do you want to ask Pete?
Pete, first of all,
Sean?
big
How are you?
fan. I'm feeling great so far. Just the bar, step outside. It's actually pretty cold out, so I'm going to make it real quick. Real quick, can you tell any, what's the most interesting story, probably from more predominantly the 90s, like the Attitude Era? What's one of the craziest things you had to encounter while being employed there?
One of the craziest stories. All right, one of the craziest stories was we had
And please, feel free to use swear words.
Okay, we'll do. One of the craziest things that I ever saw was one of my favorite moments was actually wrestling court. And at the time, the acolytes were actually suing Teddy Long for being, quote unquote, the charges were that he was a cheap motherfucker. And, the wrestling court is set up just like a regular courtroom. You have a judge. Normally it is the person with the most seniority that was, should have been Undertaker, but he was out hurt at the time, so Triple H took his place. There's a bailiff who was the bailiff was played by the Godfather, but it was a regular courtroom set up, and we nobody missed it. Everyone was in there. Every one of the talent were in there, and even the agents, and we all basically sat just like a classroom. And I know I sat next to Kurt Angle, and we neither one of us could breathe. We were laughing so hard. So basically, the charges against Teddy were he was, like I said, he was a cheap motherfucker, and he would find ways to not pitch in with money. Like he'd be that guy that if you were going through a toll, once you're already the back tire's already past the toll, he'd say, "Hey, do you guys need any money?" Because it was already paid. Mm-hmm. Or he would do little things like he wouldn't. One of the other charges he had was he got we'll say something, an enhancer for the male genitalia, and he was selling it off to the boys instead of sharing, and so for that reason he was being charged. That's why he was being sued by JBL and Farouk. So when the time came, the charges were brought up. Triple H kind of just looked over at Teddy Long and said, Teddy, you're pretty much fucked. He goes, do you have anything to say in your defense? Teddy stands up and just like you see him on the stage there, stands up and says, Your Honor, I have a character witness. And he calls up Mae Young. And Mae Young walks to the front. We're all lying. We're all dying laughing. And all of a sudden, the one rule about wrestlers' court, you could lie, cheat, and steal as long as you get whatever you could do to win the case. I mean, you could basically pay off anyone you have to or whatever. So Mae Young walks to the front and she says, I don't understand all you wrestlers with your big dicks needing that Niagara. And the place just erupted. And then, of course, Triple H, has to indulge, and he says, well, Mae, Niagara's needed in some cases, and the Niagara, and he just kept saying Niagara too, which made it all more comical. But at the as the case went on, I think it was evident from the beginning that Teddy wasn't going to win it. So he had to buy the Acolytes chicken and beer for 2 weeks on the road for Raw and SmackDown tapings. And
that's very customary in the court system.
Yeah.
Well,
good grief. One real quick question. Since you brought up the Wrestlers Court, I've heard of those stories. I hear things on YouTube. People will say Wrestlers Court this, Wrestlers Court that. Mostly the Undertaker being the judge. Now, do you think they still hold those things nowadays, like in basic WWE?
I sure hope so, because it's some of the best moments, and it brings a lot of bonding into the locker room. So I sure hope so. I know that I know baseball teams do it. They call it a kangaroo court in the major leagues and stuff like that. And like a pitcher will get fined if he has an 0-2 count and walks a batter. So stuff like that, and then they use the money at the end of the year to throw a party. But this is just a case by case basis, and I hope they still do it. I don't know if they do it or not. I haven't spoken to anyone recently.
Well, I'll tell you right now, for WWE Network, they got to get that on film. Take it easy, guys.
All right, thanks for calling,
that would
Chris.
make money.
Yeah, we've actually brought that up before. It would be a great show for the network, Wrestlers Court. And you brought up Teddy Long and the Viagra, and he actually told that story. Well, not that specific story, but he talked about Viagra on it was one of the shoot interviews with kayfabe commentary, and he said one of the guys who would buy them a lot was Big Vis. And he would just take them and then just sit in the locker room with a big erection.
Yeah, I wasn't privy to that one. Thank God, but I can visualize, and it's not a pretty sight.
No. I assume it's true, but I don't know for sure. Was it true that you guys were friends of Shane McMahon as children or when you were younger?
Absolutely, the whole thing's true. I knew Shane and Rodney went to it was called Central Middle School, and I went to Eastern Middle School, so we were kind of like rivals in sports growing up. And then when we got to the high school, we all became friends, and it was just a natural bond. And we all played football together. We had a bunch of classes together, and we just automatically became best of friends, the three of us and a few other guys. And every bit of it's true. All the stories. In fact, when we first started doing the vignettes, Shane McMahon told Rodney and I, when he called us in to ask us if we would do it, he said he had a script in his hands and he tore it up, and he said, just go Sunday morning, just go tell stories about how we got in trouble, the things we did, and they'll edit it, and you're going to be on Monday Night Raw Monday night. So it was kind of exciting. It was nerve-wracking. So Rodney came to my house that Sunday morning. About 8:30 in the morning, we drank a 12-pack of beer each, and then we went over to the studio and shot our parts. And a guy by the name of Chris Chambers, who's still with the company, he helped us. He asked us the right questions, and we told stories, and he made it work.
Mm-hmm. No, was it Shane's idea to do this as an angle? Did you know where it came from?
It's funny. I believe he did want to initially, mm-hmm. and no one knew it was going to go to the extent it went. Mm-hmm. And the thing was, we were only supposed to be on it for a couple weeks, and I think because of the crowd reaction and them loving to hate us and how it was something new and different, and it was real guys just being thrown into the ring. I think that just caught on, and people just love to hate us. And so Vince always give the public what they want, and that's when he had us go on the road for a little while, and then we were only supposed to be on the road for about a month, and then after we were on the road for about a month, we lost the loser leave town match with Briscoe and Patterson, mm-hmm. And then we thought we were done. And then the next thing you know, they brought us back into the corporation and gave us 3 one-year contracts, and it was the best 3 years of my life.
Yeah. So that'd be exciting to, think you're going to be. You said it was nerve-wracking at first, and so what was the reaction like when you guys came back, backstage after your first couple appearances on TV?
Well, it was different. I mean, guys back then, they were, I feel like they were nice to us because of who we were friends with. But I'm sure at first, there was definitely some animosity. We're taking some airtime away from guys that went in and paid their dues and worked hard to get where they were. And to be honest with you, we worked hard, but we worked hard after the fact. We got a shot because of who we were friends with. But the one thing I can say is that if we weren't doing our job, then Vince would definitely not have us on there. He would definitely we would have been gone immediately, and he would have said thank you for trying and blah blah blah. But Vince didn't do that. He saw what was going on. Obviously, there was a reaction. Obviously, the reaction was so good because the match against Briscoe and Patterson was actually one of the highest-rated 15-minute segments in wrestling history. And I don't know if it still is to this date because I don't follow the ratings, but I know it was as of a few years ago. But the thing that a lot of people, you always see internet stuff, how people shit on us and stuff like that, which I think is, everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I think someone who understands what it's like to be in that ring would understand that it's like, if you took 2 guys with no wrestling experience whatsoever, but with athletic backgrounds, and threw us in a ring with the best of the business and said, wrestle for 10 minutes, don't get killed, then you see what it's really like. And then there's a little bit more respect when you look at it from that aspect. I mean, we weren't good wrestlers. I'll be the first one to admit it. We sucked. But as time went on and as we got more training, we got a lot better. And if you look at towards some of the matches towards the end of our careers, we actually did get pretty, I think we got pretty good. But the one thing we were consistent throughout that 3-year stint was people loved to hate us, and then eventually we started doing a 24/7 rule, and people started to laugh at us because we started doing comedy. So we were getting a reaction, and there's people there that can wrestle their ass off, and I'm not, no one specifically. I'm just saying, but if you can't get a reaction from the crowd, you're not worth it. You're not worth anything.
I was a big fan because honestly, like you said, how can you not hate these guys who, are saying they're from the mean streets of Greenwich and they're rich and they're and their friends, the son of the owner. I mean, all that stuff combined, you have to hate these guys, and it was great. Let's see.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. I would have hated me too.
But in a good way, you know what I'm saying? It was fun.
Yeah.
Let's see. 347 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
How you doing, man? My name is Jamie Davis. I'm calling from Groton, Connecticut.
All right. You got a question for Pete?
I'm over in the Navy down here.
What was that?
I'm in the Navy. I'm actually in Groton, Connecticut right now. Hey, man. Quick question. So let me get this straight. You guys were y'all were childhood friends with Shane McMahon?
Yes, sir. Yes, we were.
Was that storyline, or was that right by the book?
I can't hear him. What did he say?
I'm not sure either. What did you say, Jamie?
I said, was that a storyline, or y'all just doing that for a gimmick?
We just went over that whole story, and it was, Pete just went over about how they were friends growing up also.
Oh, sorry, man.
No
I
problem.
just tuned in. Someone gave me a call, told me to tune in.
The only thing that wasn't real is that Rodney and I had money. Other than that, everything else was real. We didn't dress like that.
Let me just shift gears for a second. I was always a big Shawn Michaels fan growing up. So maybe could you shed some light on the fact that I understand he was a big drug user, especially in the late 90s. Could you maybe tell me, did you see any, without, pointing the finger too hard, could you maybe ask him, or maybe tell me, what kind of drugs was he on? Maybe some cool stories, maybe him conking out in the middle of sitting down eating his potato salad, or whatever the case may be.
I don't know if he's going to talk about that, but he was just asking about drug use in WWE, specifically with Shawn Michaels.
I wouldn't know. Shawn wasn't there when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really answer that. I'm not really the one. I wouldn't be the one to say something like that. I don't even know, to be honest with you. But there's an old rule: you don't stooge on people. But he wasn't there anyway, so I don't really know the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, didn't he have a commissioner role in 99, 2000?
Well, Jamie, if you listen to the show later on, you will find out there was some Niagara, also known as Viagra use. So there you go. Thanks for calling in, Jamie.
He was the commissioner, but I think he was there after I don't remember him being the commissioner while I was there.
Mm-hmm.
If he was, it was only for like a couple of weeks, and he certainly was not on any drugs at the time.
Yeah. Let's see here. John.
Yep, welcome back.
Hello, you have a question for Pete. John's from Rhode Island, I believe.
Yep. How you doing, Pete?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing great. What do you think was the biggest accomplishment? I missed a bit of the show. What was your biggest accomplishment for the WWE? Do you want to say that you don't remember?
Can you repeat the question?
He said, "What?"
Hearing everybody.
Yeah, no problem. He said, John wants to know what would you call your biggest accomplishment in WWE?
Let's see. Biggest accomplishment, other than not getting hurt, seriously, crippled. I would say it would have to be, even though probably 30 seconds, it was winning the hardcore belt at WrestleMania. I mean, that was just I remember when during the match, my head was split open by viscera with a box fan, and I had blood in my eyes, couldn't see, and I knew that at some point in time the match was going to end up spilling backstage. And when I came back out, I ended up spraying Thrasher in the face with a fire extinguisher, and then hitting him over the head with it. And then I got the pin, and I remember, if you ever go back and look, you see I let out a scream. It literally hit me at that moment that this was WrestleMania, and no one will ever take away the fact in the record books that I was actually named hardcore champion. And then Taz beat my ass a couple of seconds later and took it from me. But it's just something that you'll never, you can't get taken away from you. So, I guess the fact that we didn't win many matches because, our characters were more about jumping people backstage and getting our heat and then losing in the ring, to actually win something for once and do it at such a big stage like that with millions of people around the world watching was kind of special for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was even hard, by the way, for the five distinguished because you actually dropped it, I think, one or two times before you blew it because of the blood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, we'll get talking to Pete, and great luck to you.
Thank you, bro. You too.
Thanks for calling in, John.
So,
those hardcore matches, how much of that is laid out beforehand, or is it kind of like where certain things are going to be, and then you just kind of roam around and have fun, or what?
It's something like that. You can't stage everything. There's got to be a lot of ad-libbing, but certain points where you have people coming in and you have a certain just like this Sunday, you have like certain things going on. Certain people have to eliminate certain people and stuff, and you go over prior to the show, and but a lot of it in between, all that stuff in between, sometimes is ad-libbed, depending on how long you got to go for a match. When there's a match going on, this was one of the cool things about learning how to do this business. First we did everything move by move. We had to memorize everything because we didn't know what we were doing, and then eventually you have an amount of time, and sometimes that time can run over or run short, and you have to be able to adjust on the fly, which is something that it's amazing when you stick it right. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now, I know when you guys first were on TV, when you guys attacked X-Pac, there was a couple other members of the group. It was like Willie Green and Billy P or something. What happened to those guys?
Billy and Shane are still tight. They still talk from time to time. Billy lives in New York as well. There was Willie Green. He still lives in Greenwich. And nothing's changed for Willie. He's been the same Willie since I can remember. and then actually there was one more member, and it was Chris Sahowitz. And Chris is actually from up in the Boston area. He's a bartender, and he was actually Shane's roommate in college. But we all were very close with him, and he came down to that as well. And it just turned out, I guess, for whatever reason, whether it was because Rodney and I first came out, they decided to just stay with Rodney and I. So after WrestleMania, we didn't even know we were getting paid. So we got a call by Shane to come see him in his office, and he had paychecks for us. Now we would have done it for free. We didn't care, and he ended up handing us the checks and then said, how much vacation time do you have? We want to start bringing you guys on the road because during WrestleMania there were a bunch of signs with our names on it, and they had people backstage that look at that stuff and. They say if you have a sign with your name on it, you're over. And that's why a few weeks ago, some guy put up on a Monday Night Raw with Roman Reigns comes over, comes out from the crowd. Some guy had a Mean Street Posse equals rating sign. And for that to happen 15 years after the fact, it's pretty special.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, you mentioned, not being hurt. What were your matches with the APA like? Along those lines.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Fist fights. It was basically we got our butts kicked. The wrestling business is all about respect. And when you go and you pay your dues like a normal wrestler, you go, you sign up for a school, you learn how to wrestle, you learn the psychology of a match, and then you start doing independence. You get so good at independence, you catch a break. Someone sees you and gives you a tryout with WWE. We didn't go through that, so we had to pay our dues, and so that's why there was we didn't have respect for the boys. Maybe face to face they would be nice to us, but we paid our dues in different ways. And when it came to Bradshaw and Farouk were always pretty badass when they were in the ring, and they seemed to hit us a little extra harder. Gave it to us, and there was a Monday Night Raw where he folded my head. He folded a chair around my head, and he told me about 6 months later, because after that match, we went backstage, and when you go backstage after a match, everyone shakes everyone's hand, says thank you, and basically thank you because you're putting your life in his hands and vice versa, and no one got hurt. So I went backstage, and he said he was waiting for me to either hit him or or bitch and moan or whatever. And I stuck my hand out. I said, "Thank you very much." He said, and then he said that after that, he said that I actually earned his respect after that because he laid into me pretty good. So, but it was always made. Their characters were badass fighters. So when it comes, when you're fighting three preppy guys from Greenwich. You got to make it look really stiff, and they did. They laid it in.
Yeah. You said you didn't dress like that either. So whose idea was the sweater vest?
That was the office. That wasn't ours. Actually, Shane told when Rodney and I originally went to. I told you for those vignettes. Shane told us, "I want you guys to dress real preppy." And if you look at the vignettes in the beginning, we actually have golf shirts with sweater vests. I didn't even own a. We had to go out and buy sweater vests that Saturday at the mall. But yeah, so he wanted us in khaki pants and sweater vests and all that stuff, and so we just did what he said. And then as time went on, we had to change up the look a little bit. We went from golf shirts underneath to t-shirts because that was kind of the look back then. And then when we started blowing the crotches. It seemed like every Monday and Tuesday night someone was blowing the crotch out of their khakis. So we were spending a fortune on khaki pants. So we ended up switching to Lucky jeans. There's a plug for Lucky, and so we went to those, and then that seemed to work out great, and it was probably the most comfortable part of it. And then eventually, when they were trying to make us into independent wrestlers, when they sent us to Memphis and stuff like that. We ended up all having different gimmicks that we were testing, but for when they did make us an independent, which had never happened.
Well, what what gimmick did they give you when they sent you down to Memphis?
I didn't really have it like an actual like a character guy. I was just Pete Gas, and I wore a singlet. If you ever Google pictures, you'll see I had one blue, one black. Mm-hmm. The blue was if I was a baby face, the black if I was a heel. It was like the Raiders colors, and actually the blue one was actually like the Rams were in the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl that year, and I ended up doing their colors, just trying to take the stuff to make it as baby face as possible. It was like blue and gold. Mm-hmm. Rodney was called Rod Rageous. It was very similar. He had a boa like Hogan had, glasses, shaved his face kind of differently. And Joey Abs was very similar to what I was doing, where he was, Abs had a black singlet, just all black. There was nothing fancy about Abs. And we, I had a storyline for a character for myself that I pitched to the office, but it never got used anyway. It ended up getting used with the FBI, but the full-blooded Italians, but it never got to me. I never got to use it, so it just kind of got just fell by the wayside, basically.
Yeah. What was that they used with the FBI?
Well, the storyline that I was going to do was, Pete Gas is from Greenwich and all this money, and with the APA always gambling in their so-called whatever that office was that they had, I was going to start gambling. My idea was that I was going to start gambling on playing cards and losing, and then I was going to, while during a card game, I was going to start making bets on wrestling matches. And I felt like those, it was a topic that, it was perfect for the Attitude Era. So what would happen was I'd start betting on some matches, and then, you can go different ways. Like I could go in and interfere on a match, and I could cause an angle with somebody else or whatever. And I had a whole scenario planned where, I was in big time debt, and, now gambling was starting to become bigger throughout the locker room, according to the storyline. And the APA says, listen, you're fighting, say, Funaki or whoever, and you're a heavy favorite tonight. If you dump the match, all the debt that you owe us, you're going to be, we'll squash it. So then I leave their office, and at the time, Stephanie McMahon was the commissioner, and she would say, hey, I understand there's some gambling going on, and we hear you're a heavy favorite. If you lose, you're out of the WWE. So now I have to, then there's the whole storyline. What do I do? Do I get out of debt? Do I lose my job? I can't do that. And there's just all different angles that it could have went. And I was entertained by it. I used to bet on stuff, bet on games and stuff. So I always thought it was kind of funny. Mm-hmm. And we actually tested the angle out in Memphis, Tennessee. That's how we broke up Rodney and I. I was too worried about a football game on television, and I brought a little TV down, and Kevin Kelly was announcing down in Memphis, Tennessee, and we put a little TV out there, and I kept checking the score, and I cost us the match, and Rodney got beat up, so it caused heat between the two of us, and that's how we ended up breaking up our character down in Memphis, Tennessee, and then we went on to be singles fighters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I ran into you at Mohegan Sun Casino once, and I don't know, maybe you were betting on the wrestling up there. I'm not sure.
No, I definitely wasn't betting on the wrestling.
Inchman, you got a question from the Facebook?
Yeah, I got a question from Jay Beefington. He wants to know any memories of Shane McMahon partying. He heard he was a legendary drinker.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, Shane's an extremist. He's not by no means addicted to it, but he knows how to have a good time. I mean, I can remember when we were kids or in college, coming home from break. It was one of those things where we would go out and Rodney buy a round, I'd buy a round. You'd buy maybe I'd buy like shots, maybe Rodney'd buy a round of beers. But then anytime Shane bought, it was always, you got 2 beers and 2 shots, and you had to drink them quick. And it was just always that type of deal. I remember when, I don't remember what Super Bowl it was. The the Cowboys beat the Steelers in the late 90s. I can't remember. Larry Brown was MVP, so I forgot what year it was. I don't remember the Super Bowl. I was home in bed because we had moved Shane back from the city back to his parents' house because he was about to get married, and when we moved him into the city, there was the biggest bottle I ever saw of Jack Daniels. Shane loved Jack Daniels, and we'd all did a shot to christen the new place, and then we never touched it after. And then when it came time to leave, to move him out, he found the bottle. We ended up polishing off the whole bottle, and I remember, it wasn't doing a shot. It was basically you had to fill your entire mouth with the Jack Daniels and swallow it, and we just kept handing it around. So we ended up getting drunk pretty fast, and I didn't feel too good. But the one thing Shane always knew how to do is always how to take care of you if you weren't feeling well.
Oh, that's very good. That's very good. Well, last week for our year-end awards, I decided to drink a bottle of Southern Comfort on the show, which I don't know if resulted in a good podcast or not, but...
So.
Yeah, I think most of the listeners enjoyed it. I don't know if Incher enjoyed doing the show with me, but yeah. Was there any more questions? Well, I know there's a lot of them. Was there any more good ones there from the Facebook Incher?
Oh, there's a few. Let's see. Did he ever do a mask gimmick or in any other federation or anything like that?
A mask?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A match or a mask?
Masked, like a hood.
Yeah, actually, what happened was eventually I got sent to IWA Puerto Rico. Right before my release, I spent 3 months in Puerto Rico. It was actually Rodney and Ad stayed in Memphis. They sent me by myself along with Mosh from the Headbangers and D'Lo Brown. And according to storyline, when we came in, we were white angels. So we actually wore denim shorts. Shirt, I can't even remember what kind of shirt I had. We all wore whatever, and then we had white masks on our face, or on our heads rather, and like the Lucha Libre type masks. Mm-hmm. And then eventually we took them off a few weeks into the being in Puerto Rico, and the crowd. I don't know how they didn't know it was us, but at first, when we took the masks off, they were very excited to have us on the island, and we were there for, like I said, 3 months. And it was a blast.
Mm-hmm. No, when you mentioned about Googling and seeing your pictures when you're in Memphis, like you really got ripped. You were jacked when you were down there. I don't know how was Pete Gas ever on the gas?
No, Pete Gas wasn't ever on the gas.
All right.
You know what happens is, to be honest with you, you get around that lifestyle. So when I started, I was an offensive lineman in college, mm-hmm. and I had an offensive lineman body. I mean, I didn't know how to do, I wasn't a big cardio guy. I'd rather go eat a pizza, drink a 12-pack of beer, and then go lift some weights or whatever. I wasn't, worried about my diet. I wasn't worried about cardio and all that other stuff. And then, when you get in front of a lot of these guys, you start to learn more and more about your nutrition and health and taking care of yourself. And not only that, you actually really, you want to make you can't help but want to be more marketable, mm-hmm. and make yourself a better athlete. And how do you do that? You work out. You work on certain aspects. And sure enough, that's what I did. I picked people's brains. I worked out with people. I worked out. I did legs with China one time, and she made me throw up. So China had a great leg workout. As time went on, people, you go to these different cities, and everyone gets there beforehand and works out and stuff, and it was great. Mm-hmm. So again, it was one of those things where you want to make yourself feel marketable, and you want to be used more and more, and you see these other guys, and you try to emulate them, or you look up to them, and they look great, and you're going on the road when you're traveling to the next city, you're stopping at a place. Instead of eating, a hamburger and French fries, you're eating an egg white omelet or something, mm-hmm. Just to get some food in you, because you're going to be on the road. So it was just a matter of that, where you just kind of took a little pride in what you did and how you did it.
Yeah. Was Vince Russo there? I assume he was there when you, or maybe he wasn't. It might have been after you left. Well,
Actually, he was. I spoke to Vince not too long ago. I did an interview for him. He hasn't aired it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually told me that it's where Shane originally suggested bringing friends in for the match with X-Pac,
mm-hmm.
but he ran with it afterwards, and he's taking credit for the development of the character, him and Ed Ferrara and Chris Chambers and all that, and so I owe a lot of thanks to those guys, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have these memories, and I'm still getting, people remember me and stuff. It's great. It's a great feeling. So I owe those guys a lot.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you still friends with Shane?
Of course, absolutely. He is one of a kind, to be honest with you. He's got a heart of gold. He cares about his friends very much. We all have, as you get older, I'm sure you guys would know, your life changes, and you have different responsibilities, families, jobs, stuff like that. And with that being said, you don't get to see each other as you'd like to. Shane and I live about an hour or so away from each other, so we don't get to see each other as much as we'd like. If it was up to me, I'd like to see him way more than I do. But it happens. He goes to China a lot for business,
mm-hmm.
and so I'm sure during his free time, he'd want to spend it with his family. I know I would.
Yeah. Now you came back, briefly for Battle Royal. What was that like?
That was the 15-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely different. It was I remember going there, and before doors opened, I was sitting with Lance Cade, and we were him and Spanky, and we were kind of talking because we were all in Memphis together, and we just comparing notes on what it was like when I was there and then what it was like then, and it was much different. It was more I know that, like, before the doors open, guys go over stuff if they need to, and it was much more like you were practicing, almost like theater type of deal. It reminded me of stuff like that, where you got, back when I did it, you got to ad lib a little bit more. I don't know what it's like currently. I heard there was some change back, but I don't know how much of that is true or not. But yeah, it was it was just a different feel to it. It was much more I don't know how to say it, more scheduled, and everything was to a T. You had to know what you were going to do, what you were going to say, word for word, instead of just hitting bullet points when you spoke. You had an actual script. Mm-hmm. So it was a little different.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did you guys end up leaving the company?
So what happened was we all had, like I said, I was in Memphis. They were in Memphis, and I was in Puerto Rico. And at the time, right before I went, the storyline was that Shane had bought WCW, and I was being told by the office that we were just honing our skills a little bit, and then it would only make sense that Shane would bring his posse with him to WCW.
Mm-hmm.
So we, I was kind of hanging my hat on that, and then they had I guess a takeover type thing with WCW with the storyline, and that kind of after that they just started letting people go. And I remember I was in Puerto Rico, and it was a Wednesday, and I got a call from Joey Abs, and he was in his southern accent. He said, "Man," he goes, "I need to talk to you." He goes, "You're the only one that can make me laugh right now." And I said, "Look, I was like, what's wrong? Everything okay?" I figured, I was hoping it wasn't anything at home or anything. And he said, "Nah, they just let me go." And I was shocked, because Joey Abs didn't really get to show what he can do in the ring,
mm-hmm.
but that guy could do everything, and he was strong as an ox. It was the character was what held him back. He had to be kind of corny,
mm-hmm.
but eventually, we were all hoping that we'd be able to show off what we learned and stuff like that. But he was already polished before he even got there. He just had to be a goofball like us. But yeah, so they were letting guys in. They were in Memphis, Tennessee, and guys were getting let go. They were either being sent to Louisville to be like with guys like Randy Orton and stuff like that, or they were going to, or they're being released. So, anyway, so those guys, Rodney got released and Axe got released. I remember driving that night to a show in Puerto Rico. I sat in the back seat, and D'Lo and Chaz were telling me I didn't have anything to worry about because I'm not in Memphis. I'm in Puerto Rico. And then, sure enough, that following day, I was walking with groceries. I walked down to the grocery store, and sure enough, I just got a phone call from a guy named Bob Clark letting me know that I'd been released and that they were going to put me in contact with Dr. Death over in Japan, and they were going to send me to Japan for more training, but they didn't want me to stop wrestling because of all the improvements that I made. But right now they didn't have anything with all the talent that they had from WCW and
ECW
and the current roster at WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And then it never came. I never got a phone call I never heard back for them for Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So.
Would you have gone to Japan? Would you have, pursued wrestling, hopefully to, either come back?
I actually was. I had every intention to. In fact, I even spoke to Jeff Jarrett. He was planning a trip in that September to do 10 days in Australia, come home for 2 weeks, and then do another 10 days in Europe. And then 9/11 hit, and it just never happened.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, everyone just pulled back from spending money. No one wanted to do anything, and it just seems like ever since that point, no one was really paying after that anyway to do any shows. So
yeah, let's see. Another call here from 978 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
What's up, man? Ronnie Mercer here from Drake, Massachusetts.
Cool. Do you have a question for Pete?
Yeah, man, he's talking about Shane McMahon and all the stuff from the early days. I was kind of curious because my kid watches it now. Tell me, you have any cool stories about Stephanie McMahon when she was younger?
If you didn't hear me, he wants to know if you had any cool stories about Stephanie McMahon.
Right. I heard him, yep. All right, so when we were kids, Stephanie's about 5 or 6 years. I think Stephanie's about 6 or 7 years younger than me. I don't remember the exact. But she used to hang out with us. She, like if we were, we accepted her. She was cool. We used to do that. So we were kids. I think I was in 10th grade at the time. She was really little at the time, and we were all like talking in the house, and we were talking about wrestling characters, and who was saying they were going to be like so and so. Everyone had their own persona, and I couldn't think of one. And I said to Steph, Steph, what do you think? I said, what would my wrestling name be? And Stephanie was adorable. Had a cute little smile. And she looks up at me and she goes, Flower. I said, what? Flower. So I said, I was like, what are you talking? I was like, that's not tough. I was like, she's like, yeah, you come out and you'll have petals around your head, and so she told the story. To this day, we still call each other Flower. It became a nickname.
Well, hey, real quick, just to shift a little gears here, and I don't want to be too disrespectful, but tell me, what do you think of the allegations between Stephanie McMahon and the Macho Man, Randy Savage?
I don't know.
If you had to shift on red or black, which one would it be?
Green.
Like if you had to guess yes or no, and you had a gun in your head, and you had to pick one, you can't say I don't know.
I'd say no. I'd say no. I don't know the answer. I have to say no.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a good answer. It's probably the most likely answer. All right, man. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for calling it, Rod.
Yeah, I think it's the most likely answer.
I did like how he buttered you up with a pleasant question, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna get this one in." At least he was thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was cute. Along those lines, someone asked on Facebook if Vince ever pushed you into a pool. Because he told a story that he liked to push. That was like a big rib he liked to do. If people came over, he would push them into a pool.
If he did, I don't remember. I mean, we swam a lot in the pool, so anything was possible back then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I have a good story regarding a pool, but it had nothing to do with Vince pushing me. I don't remember if he may have pushed us in the. He was like one of the guys with us.
Yeah.
Like we would watch we would watch playoff football games in the living room and stuff like that. And I think he's still a Redskin fan. He was a Redskin fan. I remember Redskins played the Lions back in the late 80s, early 90s, and we were there. It had to be early 90s, or like 90, whatever. And we were over the house. It was an early afternoon game. We were watching football at the house, and he was always one of us. He was really cool. He'd joke around with us and stuff like that, which was funny because once we became talent, he didn't want to show that that side to the boy. It was business, and he really didn't. Every once in a while, he'd say something, But one thing that really stood out in my mind was after that Briscoe and Patterson match. The following day, the ratings came out, and we were just doing. Rodney and I had a thing where we would talk in the car going from city to city, and we would try to say, we would pump each other up and say, we got to do well for the McMahons. It wasn't even, we didn't think of it as for ourselves. We were just thinking about how we had to make sure Vince was proud of us and stuff like that. And it was after that match with the Briscoe and Patterson that following night, we got a phone call in the car. Now, at first, when we first drove down the road, going from city to city, Shane would drive with us, and it was fantastic. It was like the three of us were back together, and then I guess Vince didn't want Shane to show any favoritism, so we didn't. We took our own car, and Shane rode with Vince. But the phone rang that night, that Tuesday night, and it was after we were driving home. I don't know where we were driving from. I don't remember, but Shane said that hold on, someone wants to talk to you. And then Vince had told us that night that the ratings. It was a record, and how proud of us he was. And then, I talk about. I'm actually writing a book. It's coming out this year, I hope. And one of the stories, or actually the forward of the book, is done by JBL, and JBL talks about that segment that became a record, and WCW put up against the Mean Street Posse. Break the record. It was the Mean Street Posse versus Briscoe and Patterson, and on WCW was Hulk Hogan versus Macho Man.
Wow.
And we beat him in the ring.
That's crazy.
So, yeah.
But what was your story about the pool?
Oh, so Vince had a rule, and we were allowed to drink at the house when we were in high school, but we weren't allowed to leave. We had to give up our keys, and we were drinking, and Vince went out to go. We were swimming, having a couple beers, and Vince went out to go buy us more beer, and we heard like a motorcycle coming up, up the driveway, and it turned out it was Hogan, and Hogan was carrying our beer up to the pool. So I had mentioned to him, I had met him years later, and I introduced myself, and he said, "No, I remember you," and I said, "You may not remember, but when I first met you." Obviously, you're not going to remember. I would. You actually carried the beer. Vince went to go get his beer, and you carried the beer up to us. So he paused and he says, "Wait a minute, I carried your beer?" And I thought about it. I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." And he goes, "You owe me one. Go get me a beer." So I actually went into the crowd and got him a beer.
That's awesome. I actually watched that match earlier today. You guys versus the Stooges. And I remember at the time, and I had a lot of fun watching. But watching it again, it was like, even though those guys were older and stuff, those guys were still really good. And
yeah, but I mean, we were horrible. We didn't even know how to take a bump. So if you actually watch the match, the bumps are horrible. I mean, we did not know how to do anything. So all we knew was if we threw our bodies around, it would make them look good. And I forgot if it was Briscoe or Patterson. They were going to push, throw me, so I went over the barrier. And I remember just throwing my body over the barrier, and that's when I learned that there's cement on the other side of the barrier because I landed right on the cement. Oh. And but it was one of those things where we didn't know what we were doing. We just knew that in order to make ourselves look believable, we just had to throw our bodies around. And and as time went on, we learned how to take more bumps and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. But yeah, just everything they did too was like they knew how to get the crowd into it, and I know it's a few minutes, but like when they would make their comeback and stuff, like it was great.
Yeah, crowd loved it, and Pat loved to do his Hulk Hogan imitation, and that really got the crowd really fired up.
Yeah. I noticed you guys did a lot of body slams, so that must have been one of the first ones. Really. Yeah.
Right. It was. We had very little offense, and I know that Pat didn't want us to touch him as much because he was afraid he was going to get hurt. Now, knowing that we were so green, and so Briscoe took some of the heat. I think we gave him a double clothesline. I think that was the extent of our offense for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was basically just them beating the shit out of us for, whatever it was, 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's how I want to ask. Did any of you said some of the guys might have resented you a bit? Was there any ribs pulled on you guys?
No, I think that was part of the whole, leave them alone. They're McMahon's friends, and they didn't want to get involved with that. They just let us be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny though. As time went on, and like I said, we took our ass whippings. You could see, there were certain guys that were cool to us in the beginning. Prince Albert was, still to this day, I consider him a good friend. Val Venus, Test, I hated him when we first got there. He hated us, we hated him, and then as time went on, once it was that whole thing leading into the Lover or Leaver match for SummerSlam '99 that actually brought us closer together. And then we were all inseparable after that. That was one of those things where, we put him over so much for that thing. We made him look like Superman that, he ended up clicking for him, and he understood that, that we were there to make him look good. So it was a different. Our relationship changed a lot that month, and right up to a few days, like about a week before his death, 10 days before his death, I actually I spoke to him. I actually a few months prior to that, I sent him a DVD of the match because he didn't have a copy of it, and I guess he watched it and he called me back and he said, thank you. I guess he got it that it really helped his career and it helped make him a good baby face. So, but it's one of those things it's hard when after you look at these you look at these old tapes now, and you look at all the guys that have passed. It's difficult because you have fond memories of the guys, but then you say, "God, way too short. Life's too short to pass away like that."
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Intro. Is there any more questions from the Facebook?
I've got one from the chat room. Brains. He wants to know: do you ever foresee Shane ever being back in the WWE?
I sure in hell hope so. I would love it. I think the crowd would go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think the roof would come off the place. There's always a little piece of me hoping that he'd come back. Whether or not he does, I don't know. I know he's busy with his new company that he's been working on. I know he's working hard at it. But I always wonder, if he came back and if it was a good storyline opportunity, and if he came out for, say, WrestleMania or something, that place would just erupt because everyone loved him because he's always been crazy ever since we were kids, and it never changed. And he always knew how to steal the spotlight. And we may have been in the middle card of some of those pay-per-views, but it's his matches that people seem to remember the most of those pay-per-views because he's fearless.
Yeah. Do you still watch wrestling?
Absolutely. Watch it every week.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I enjoy it. I like seeing the new guys. I like watching, my old friends and stuff. And I always like to just watch it. I always hope for a real good storyline and all that stuff. And I'm addicted to it. I've been watching since I was 9 years old. I can't stop now.
Yeah. Any predictions? Who's going to win the Rumble?
Yeah. I'm going to say Triple H.
All right.
I don't know anything. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing. I just think it makes for a good storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I feel bad for the company, with all the injuries that they're having now, and especially so close to, they got to build up for WrestleMania. This is it. This is the push this week. This was what set the table for Mania, and so many guys getting injured. Next man up, the guys they say in football, or whatever sport. Someone's got to step up, and I read the internet and all that stuff, and everyone, all the guys that were from the Attitude Era are like telling the guys that are in the locker room now, it's time to grab that, brass ring and all that stuff. And it's true. Like, this is an opportunity for these young guys. Like, if they could, I never got the opportunity. I never, I wasn't ready. And by the time I was getting close to being ready, I was released, and these guys are, they've got every advantage possible. That training facility. I don't know if you guys watch the show Breaking Ground. It's fantastic. It's on the network, and I loved it. And Prince Matt Bloom is running it there, and he does I know he's a hard worker in everything he does. But the point is that this is a chance for these guys, the Finn Taylors and the all those guys to just step up and get it, and it's ripe for the picking, and they can make a lot of money real quick, and then when these guys are developed, then you got the guys that are injured that come back. It just makes the brand that much stronger.
Yeah, because then it's then you have new matchups, new guys, to see, the current guy versus the guy that was around, a few months ago, and back in the mid to late 90s, when everyone was leaving WWF, that's when, Austin and Foley and all these guys got their chance, and it was an exciting time to be, Rock, all those guys. It was an exciting time to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah, it was a great time, because, you had, Vince is a genius, we all know that. So when he was losing all his talent, that's when, he kicked it into the next gear as well, and he said, okay, I got to develop all these guys, and, he had the loyalty of guys like Taker, who I have the most unbelievable amount of respect for. Him, Triple H, all those guys, they stayed by Vince's side, and it all paid off. That the storylines got edgier, and that they did what they had to do for ratings, and it just takes off, man. It's just unbelievable how, when push comes to shove, Vince gets it done, and, hopefully, storylines start picking up here for WrestleMania and make people want it. Hopefully they give Shane a call to answer that question before, and they get him in there. And I really wish they'd make Bray Wyatt win a match, because he seems to do so many jobs, and he's got such a great character and so much potential. I just don't know why they make him lose all the time.
Yeah, because it seemed like they're setting up him and Brock on Raw, and it would be so much better if he came off some big wins going into a feud with Brock.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, how many? If you look at the last, say, 3 WrestleManias that Bray Wyatt's worked, I think he dropped all 3. I think, you got to, when he had that whole gimmick where all the little kids came out with cheap masks and stuff, it was that darker version.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I love that thing. I thought it was great. It adds another element to the show that makes it, that little creepiness. And I read that they're thinking about bringing Sister Abigail back or into the storyline, which. Make it creepy. I think it's great. I really wish they would. I know it has to be a certain type of rating, but they could still do stuff and keep it clean.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know if you've seen the Drake the Snake video. When he was, he's a very strange video out there when he's talking to Bray Wyatt.
Oh, really? No, I haven't seen it.
All right, yeah, it's not exactly what you think. It's very bizarre. But,
okay.
Yeah, I'll send it to you later. Yeah. But
right.
So you got the book coming out this year, and hopefully this year. Does it have a name?
Well, I have a name for it, and the publisher said that we'll see what happens. I have it titled "Looking at the Lights."
All right.
And because at the end of every match, I was looking at the lights, and there's actually a story. There's a story behind it. We used to, when you go to an arena, you go backstage, you have lunch, whatever, and then eventually they tell you who you're wrestling and who the agent is. So, like, Tony Gurria would be my agent sometimes. So we would, find who we were wrestling, go see Tony Gurria, and I would, before he started telling us what to do, I would say, "Hey, Tony, we're going over tonight, right?" And he'd say, "No, kid, you're looking at the lights." And that's where the story came from. So that's why it's called "Looking at the Lights." But I'm hoping I love that title, so I'm hoping the publisher wants to keep that one. But it was great. It was the best 3 years of my life. I enjoyed it to death, and it's something that I still love, and always want to be a part of. I think the biggest thing from the book coming out is that it tells great stories about being on the road, but it also tells the story, like I said to you before, how Vince took a shot, would put 2 kids off the street with athletic ability in the ring, with the best of the business, and it's that part of it. That, hopefully that fan that thinks he's a fan but yet is ripping us on the internet or whatever, maybe that person will actually read it and get it, or if they can read, and they'll say, hey, maybe I got this thing wrong. They sucked, but they sucked because they didn't know what they were doing. But how many people could do what we did, and at the same time get over with the crowd, whether they loved us or hated us at any point in time? And I think that's the story that I'm trying to tell in the book, and how things happen and where they happen and why, and just what an unbelievable ride. And it's something that someone who reads this book could always fantasize and say, hey, what would that have been like? Being thrown into the ring with a Rock, Rock for Stone Cold, and you're in a match in Madison Square Garden for a house show. It's all in there. It talks about it and how amazing it was. The feeling that went with it, and what was going on while we were working with these icons, and and we're nobodies and not even know how to take a bump. So it's something. It's a different spin on a book, and so I have a feeling you guys will be seeing me at some point this year. I hope. I'm not saying I'm going to be on Raw or pay-per-view or WrestleMania, but I'm just saying hopefully it'll be out there somewhere, and hopefully you guys will have me on again real soon.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back. When it's close to the book coming out, or after it's out, or both, whatever. But really looking forward to reading that.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate being on, guys. Seriously, and if there's any time you want me to come back, like I said, I would love it.
Excellent, definitely will. Thank you, and take care. I know you got to get up early.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. We will be right back.
You're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com, and it's that busy to the jizzy, the D-O double jizzy, B.G. James. Listen, get it, got it, good.